exposing the most vicious Native American tribes throughout history. Even if numerous Native American tribes were strong and they're independently in this video, we're revealing three of the deadliest Native American tribes you might not have known before. As we delve into this terrifying history, you'll find that these tribes are particularly feared for their unrivaled ferocity. They weren't just remarkable, they were downright terrifying, tearing through any opposition in ways that would send shivers down your spine. And just by hearing the name, subscribe for more interesting material, was sufficient to make other indigenous tribes known as the Lords of the Plains fearful. Their name is derived from the Ute term Comanche, which means enemy, or someone who always wants to fight. The Comanche's origins can be traced to the Shason tribe, who inhabited the Great Basin region of the western United States. Anthropological research shows that both tribes share commonalities in terms of language and way of life. Their language is a member of the Uto-N family, which comprises a range of native languages. When European settlers, particularly the Spanish, brought horses to the western United States, these animals slowly made their way to North America in the 16th century as a result of the Comanches' trade with nearby tribes like the Spanish-influenced Pueblo or other plains tribes that already owned horses. Through these networks of trade, the Comanches obtained horses by trading buffalo hides, captives, or other resources with horses, and they soon became skilled horsemen, extending their territory well beyond their Shawnee homeland. The Comanches they became were drawn to the buffalo-rich plains of western Kansas and eastern Colorado. Outstanding equestrians who used horses for combat, trade, and hunting not only made transportation possible but also represented authority and prestige. Children were taught to ride at an early age, and both men and women exhibited exceptional riding abilities. Within the Comanche society, Comanches were unparalleled in their ability to capture and train wild animals. When they saw a wild horse, they would stifle it with a rope around its neck until it passed out, then return it to. They would clean the horse, trim any unruly hairs around its eyes, and install a headstall to keep it under control after gently blowing consciousness into its nostrils. When it was time to ride, the handler would lead the wild horse into deep water or a sandy creek bed, which helped lessen its resistance and cushioned any falls if the horse bucked its head. After a few days, the horse was released but remained near the handler, who helped it become accustomed to human presence. William Blakemore, an English rider who lived among the tribe for 8 years, recalled how he walked slowly and awkwardly, but on riding a horse. They are the bravest and best horsemen in the world, and their Comanches were terrible in battle. With deadly accuracy, they would shoot bullets or arrows over and under each horse's neck as they charged at their enemies with booming battle cries, concealing all but 1 foot under their horses. The Comanches solely rode their preferred warhorse into combat, and even the ladies were fearless lassoing riders. Hunting buffalo and antelope. Following Spain's acquisition of Louisiana from France, the commanders gained immense influence and were renowned for their merciless and relentless warfare. They were also extremely ruthless and tenacious against their adversaries. The Comanches killed many European settlers and made it nearly impossible for the French, Spanish, and Americans to take their land. Spanish soldiers said that the Comanches were unmatched in horsemanship and fearless in battle. They were also so fierce that they stopped Spanish expansion for almost 50 years on their own. James, General. According to American Wilkinson, the Comanches are the most powerful indigenous people under the Comanches, who were first known as horse thieves, earned a terrifying reputation for their vicious raids, which were so severe that northern Spanish and Mexican inhabitants called them the Comanche Moon in these vicious raids at night. Hundreds of horse-mounted commissaries would attack Mexican communities. Abduction of massacre men, women, and pilfer horses. Despite being a very tiny tribe of about 40,000 people, the Comanches had 2 to 3 horses in their culture, and they would fight and steal them when European immigrants crossed their territories before selling them to the Spanish-Mexican Empire or the Americans. The only way for young warriors to acquire prestige, wealth, and respect within their families and bands was to demonstrate their ability to kill and plunder during repeated raids. Comanche women were notorious for the expert and ruthless torture techniques they used on prisoners who had fallen prey to one of their foes. Would offer up prayers for death. SC. According to Gwyn, the author of Empire of the Summer Moon, no other Spanish tribe. There isn't even a close second to the widespread destruction and fatalities caused by the French, Mexican, Texan, and American involvement in the area. The demonic savagery of Comanche attacks on white settlers is depicted by Gwyn in graphic detail. Gang rapes and torture deaths were frequent, and Comanche's attacks followed a dismal logic in which all men were slain, and captives where babies were slain. Tormented women were gang raped, and the author of Comanche, T.R. Fehrenbach. The sad event involving the Parker family, early settlers at Fort Parker in 1836, is described in the History of a People. Approximately 100 Comanche warriors on horseback approached the fort, and one of them waved a white flag to trick. According to the Parkers' Fehrenbach, when Benjamin Parker went outside the fort to engage the Comanches in combat, they surrounded him and speared him with their lances before charging the fort. Father and son were killed before the women with shrill battle cries. John Parker suffered severe disfigurement. Slashed and abandoned for dead, Granny Parker suffered terrible attacks and was lanced to the ground. American and Mexican soldiers were among the many prisoners that the commissaries were known for torturing. Some were burned alive over open flames, while others were castrated and scalped while still awake. One especially horrifying practice was burying prisoners up to their chins. Historical sources also describe them chopping off their eyelids and exposing their eyes to the blazing sun till they die of starvation. Describe how Comanche would sometimes stake naked male captives over red ant beds after chopping off their private parts and putting them in their mouths, sewing their lips together. In another cruel practice, captives would be sewn into untreated leather and left in the sun, where the leather would dry and tighten, gradually suffocating them. The prisoner claims that the Comanches tortured Tonkawa Indian captives by burning their hands and feet until the nerves were destroyed, amputating these extremities and then repeating the fire treatment on new wounds. The Tonkawas were also scalped alive, according to Ferdinand Bach, a Spanish account. Before we disclosed the next deadly tribe, they had their tongues severed to stop their cries. They gave us the thumbs up and remember to sign up for our channel. The Iroquois, another potent illustration of an indigenous political and social structure in North America, is the Confederacy, sometimes referred to as the Hen Ioni, or Six Nations, which served as the foundation for this strong alliance. Go back to the cooperation of several tribes, such as the Seneca and Mohawk Onondaga Couga. The Mohawk, who lived in the east, were renowned for their advantageous position and contacts with early European settlers. The Oneida, who had origins in the Great Lakes region, and the Onondaga, who lived in central New York, contributed to the diversity of the Confederacy. The Couga, and with their distinct contributions, the Sena from the west and south, respectively, further solidified this alliance. It's interesting to note that the name Iroquois wasn't originally from this confederacy, but rather came from the Algonquin, who were the famous enemies of the Haudenosaunee. They were often called Ira, which means rattlesnake. To put it simply, the IRA were experts at approaching their enemies covertly,
and dealing not only the fastest but also the most deadly blows before their enemies could even react. Many able-bodied warriors would have already fallen. The Iroquois were renowned for their strong and assertive nature, regularly extending their territory by raiding nearby tribes, easily instilling dread in many people's hearts and defeating innumerable Native American tribes in the process. Their raids had a significant effect on the Huron from an early age. Erie and Susan received military instruction to hone their bow and arrow talents. During their teenage years, spears and clubs participated in raids against rival Native American tribes and occasionally white settlers. This early exposure to combat molded them into fierce warriors who fought fearlessly out of a pure desire for victory. Showing off one's military prowess not only gained respect but also paved the way for one to become a war chief. One particularly grim aspect of Ira warfare in terms of how they treated inmates, captives were frequently exposed to the terrifying experience of crossing the gauntlet, a terrifying ritual in which they had to dodge between two lines of Iroquois warriors brandishing branches and sharp sticks while suffering bodily abuse. This practice highlighted the harsh military mentality of Iroquois society as well as the severity of intertribal wars. The 17th century Boer Wars were a bloody time for the Irish Confederacy as they fought to increase their territory. One of their most significant victories was the subjugation of the Sioux Quinks in what is now Pennsylvania. The Huron people along the Great Lakes were also severely weakened by the Iroquois. As the Bible states, if one prevails against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. The Iroquois Confederacy was notable for its remarkable ability to maintain unity among its various nations during the French and Indian War, when all of them sided with the British. By the early 1700s, when their power was at its height, the IR controlled vast territories extending from the western lands to the northern reaches of Michigan and southward to the hills of Tennessee. The southern branch of the Athabascan group includes the Apache people, who speak the languages of that group. Throughout a vast family in Alaska, western Canada, and the American Southwest, various branches of the Apache tribes lived in an area that spanned from central Texas to central Arizona and from the Arkansas River to northern Mexico. The Apache not only survived but flourished in the face of threats from the Spanish Comanches. Living in harsh terrain and influenced by Ute and Americans, the Apache became experts in mobile guerrilla warfare using more contemporary weapons and traditional bows brought by European powers. According to legend, Apache warriors were skilled riders who could shoot several arrows in one shot. The Apache's remarkable stealth and surprise skills, which formed the basis of their military prowess, were fundamental to their survival strategies. To put it simply, they were masters of hide-and-seek, which enabled them to launch unexpected and sudden attacks against their adversaries, taking them by surprise and discouraging them. One notable feature of Apache warfare was their ability to conduct raids. These warriors were adept at surprise attacks, emerging fast from cover, launching accurate attacks, and retreating just as swiftly into the familiar territory. An unmatched capacity for swiftly traveling great distances on foot or horseback. This mobility coupled with the Apache skillfully incorporated Spanish horses and steel weapons into their warfare tactics, demonstrating their versatility. They also rapidly learned to wield lances and knives with remarkable speed, further increasing their effectiveness in combat. Their strategic knowledge allowed them to strike with accuracy and retreat before their adversaries could recover from the shock. The fierce nature of these warriors was best conveyed by General Crook's description of the Apaches as the tigers of the human race. Their physical strength and roughness allowed them to outrun cavalry on foot with remarkable agility and perseverance in combat. Apaches demonstrated exceptional archery prowess by launching 7 arrows into the air prior to when it came to torturing captives. They did so without any remorse. Enemies were skinned and burned alive, and the children of their enemies met a terrible end with their heads smashed against walls, adding to their cruelty. The first one even touched the ground, demonstrating their quick and accurate marksmanship. They held in high regard anyone who could come up with a new way to torture captives. To sum it all up, these 3 tribes you will always be remembered as the one who unceasingly made all of your enemies dread you. Please share your opinions in the comments section below, and if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button to stay tuned for our most recent updates. Thank you for watching.